Never in the history of humanity have so many people grown so old at the same time. Never in the history of humanity have the younger generations been so powerful in dominating media, lifestyles, technological know-how, and the passions of life. Not only the passions of life, the fashions of life, leaving far behind the spiritual disillusionment and spiritual impoverishment of the older generation. Never in the history of humanity have older people been so conscious of how, if they'd only acted differently, they could have been happier, healthier human beings, instead of becoming the sitting ducks of the sedentary existence, behavioural illnesses and disease. What do young people have to offer older people? What do young people have that older people really want? Listen to this observer, the narrator in Zorba the Greek, as he asks, "Who is that young man leading the dance?" And old Uncle Anagnosti said, "It's Siphacus, the shepherd. All the year round he keeps his flock on the mountains, then he comes down at Easter to see people and to dance. Ah, if only I had his youth. If I had his youth, by God, I would take Constantinople by storm." What do young people have that older people want? That passion. Notice it is not the theologians or the preachers nor the politicians, but the social scientists, the journalists, the poets, and the novelists who have been urging a rediscovery and reshaping of life, a redefining and reshaping of the aging process. Because we need just that. Instead of being like the person in the gospel story that we read today, the man who had succumbed to his own pathos and paralysis of mind and spirit, we need to embrace the imagination and passion of those people who wanted to get him back on his feet again. Take the metaphor buried in that story, and you hear Jesus pointing to the passion, the focus of a new faith for that man and for everybody around them. He didn't give them a book full of beliefs and doctrines, nor a liturgy of creeds, but he was a man pointing them to the possibility of the energy of a passion. Not all young people have it, I know. Many young people have embraced the negative and the destructive passions of the bully and the tyrant, of the selfish narcissist and the aggressive consumer. But there is a host of young people with good and energized passions. And we older people covet, I hope, those passions. Older people generally are usually very good at recalling events in the past. Indeed, they often think that a good sign that Alzheimer's disease has not yet got to them, that they think recalling things from the past will keep their mind alive. And so I was a little amused by Ross Bilton's story in the papers yesterday. His discovery of a young man trying to repair his old car. How different, he said, from nowadays when you have something wrong with your car and someone comes, he calls himself a mechanic, but really guides his microcomputer over all the electronic systems of the car and says, "There's the problem." But here was this young fellow stretched out on his back underneath his old car with some kind of apparent contentment, searching there. There he was, sweating and filthy, with a warm drip of oil from the dodgy sump falling onto his forehead. So what do young people want? They want that drop of life. They want that passion of life. They want a fantasy of the future. How to get this car going and drive into the future. And an enjoyable elixir that will keep alive their fantasy of the future. Old people, us older ones, we're too much into the retrospectives. What we might have done, what we could have done, what we wish we'd done. And now look at us. Caught up often in one of those chronic problems of age-related troubles, immobility problems, health and fitness decline. But even so, on top of all that, if you have just one gene, a particular gene, APOE, then your risk getting Alzheimer's disease has gone up 3 times. If you have 2 copies of that gene, your risk of having Alzheimer's disease has gone up 15 times. So all your other activity of trying to keep your memory alive might not be so valuable if you've got the gene. But you see, fortunately, most of us in our older years do not have that genetic susceptibility. Even though we all sit around talking about when I get Alzheimer's. Stop it. You see, the statistics show very clearly, as I've said in several of my publications, the statistics show very clearly that only a small fraction of the ageing population have been caught within that genetic susceptibility. We all need to be thinking of a fantasy of the future and living towards it.